All of a sudden, I was this huge expanded cloud, and I was moving through these orbs. They had personality, they had emotions, they had color, they had flow. I had this feeling like I'd been released from a hot, stuffy closet that I'd been stuck in. Just this exhale, like, oh my God, this feels so good. As I flew along, it turned into, how in the world did I forget who I really was? How was I tricked into that whole thing? Whatever I was doing, the most remarkable thing was there was these three little hooded guys standing in front of me, and they were really stoked to see me. I felt like I was going to burst. I was going to burst open with love. The feeling was that I was going to break down into uncontrollable crying.
Welcome to Soul Pod, where science meets mysticism and your inner wisdom leads the way. Welcome back, light beings, to another episode of Soul Podcast. Crystal here, your host. I am very excited about our conversation and our guest here today for many different reasons. One of the reasons is that I came across his story years ago, and we're going to be talking about his journey, his NDE, near-death experience. But even more than that, what I find so inspiring about this guest is that I really do believe he is a way shower, somebody who's going ahead of the pack and has been for quite a long time, talking about things that maybe not everybody has been ready to hear, but then we're showing the way. He's been showing the way in so many ways. And so I'm really excited to dig into his story, and especially after his NDE, what has emerged for him in his experience. And so, Bill Letson, I'm so excited to have you on the podcast. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, Crystal. Thank you, and thanks for that introduction. I've been waiting for that introduction forever.
I had a feeling, you were talking about, and we'll get into the details here, but your NDE happened quite a while ago, and you were talking about it really before people were open to culturally having this conversation around near-death experiences. And so I really felt called to acknowledge how much courage that took to push this conversation forward before people were really open to hearing it. And then, of course, the NDE experience has been a huge part, I think, of the collective awakening, because it gives us some sort of rubric, some sort of touchstone that we can look to for what it means to be in an expanded consciousness state. And I would love to hear a bit for people who maybe haven't heard your story, what your experience was like, and maybe we can start with who you were before your NDE.
Yeah, I was a normal guy here in California, and everything was perfect. Family, life was, it's like a dream. And when I got into my teens, I found firefighting. I fell in love with that and just jumped in my whole life. And backcountry stuff was really cool at first, the Forest Service and helicopters and backcountry ranger. And I loved that. I got a degree in forestry, and then I moved on to Santa Barbara County Fire Department, and I got there in the 80s, mid 80s, and then sometime in 94 we went on a call, and this got exposed by this patient and got really ill. Ended up in the hospital. It didn't go well, and I found myself in intensive care, and then I was like flying through space, through stars. That goes right into my NDE. Did you want to just go into that?
Let's go right into it. Yeah.
Okay, so I was all of a sudden I was this huge expanded cloud, and I was moving through these orbs. I called them stars forever, but orbs is a good description, because they had personality, they had emotions, they had color, they had flow. it was what I was seeing was really unusual, just the colors and shifting and all this. But still, I was flying through this dark space, and there were these colored lit balls all around me, and I was this, like I said, I was a huge expanded cloud, like I went on forever, and I had this feeling like I'd been released from a hot, stuffy closet that I'd been stuck in. Like just this exhale, like, oh my God, this feels so good. And and it was euphoric, it was ecstatic, and I've said this cosmic orgasm is what it felt like. It just went on in all directions, and it felt like somebody was pouring honey all over my brain, and it was running through all my nerves. And I couldn't, I couldn't believe a person could feel that way. I couldn't believe those emotions existed. It was just acceptance and love and peace. And the first thing that I actually thought was, wow, what was that? Where I just came from. And it's like, that was really rough.
Oh,
And
meaning your life and your body.
yeah,
Yeah.
life as a human being. And like I said, I had it made. I hit the lottery in every category. And and that was my feeling. It's like, wow, that was really, how did I get mixed up with that? And as I flew along, it turned into, how in the world did I forget who I really was? How was I tricked into that whole thing, whatever I was doing? It didn't mean, Bill and everything, it didn't mean anything to me. It was like it was a game, or a trick, and now I was out of the game. And a lot of people can't really handle that, but yeah, family and plans and my opinion on things, all of that fell away. It just looked silly. And I was stoked, and I was just on my way. I was on my way somewhere, and I knew it was limitless, and I knew I was home. I hadn't sorted, most of it out. But then as I flew along, all of a sudden everything changed, and I was in this other place. And what I've always said is I was in this room, like a facility, like a clinic or medical something. And I've always said that it had indirect lighting, and I can't tell you why all those times I said it, I wouldn't be able to tell you why I kept saying that, but I
Oh,
can tell you,
interesting. Yeah.
but I can tell you now that you were in a dimension of light, and within that light was a room, and it was full of light, and everything that was there was made of light, but it was a reality just like this one. And in that reality, in front of me, there was equipment and there were beds. And the most remarkable thing was there was these three little hooded guys standing in front of me, and they were really stoked to see me. They were overjoyed. They were bouncing up and down and giggling, and they were kind of on me. And as my focus came in, it's like, well, where am I now? What is this place? They came forward like a bunch of puppies, and they were like, how was it? What did you learn? What can you tell us? And I think I was just kind of dumbfounded, staring at them. And they were giggling about that. And then one of them came forward and really looked me over. And then he went back, looked to the other two, and said, he doesn't remember us. And they thought that was hilarious. And they were giggling. I wasn't afraid. I didn't see demons, or I didn't see something that was going to hurt me, or I saw like friends, like old buddies, favorite pets, or something. I don't know, but I
There
wasn't
was a
afraid.
familiarity with them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
familiarity. That's good. Good point. And you know, that whole thing I was telling you about, all the flying through those stars, and how it was so felt so wonderful with peace and joy and all these things, and nothing, anxiety and fear and guilt and shame, all those things were gone. And
Mm.
I think that's why, I really think that's why it seemed like it was a trick or a game. It was it was a bunch of silly drama that was going on
Mm.
Earth, and going on in my, in my head and in my life. A lot of unnecessary, heavy emotions that don't leave this place. They don't go with us. It's only here, I think, is where we
Mm.
experience them. And so anyway, these guys, they were giggling, and I was like saying, "Well, hang on, dudes. Give me a second. I'm just got here. This is really unusual." And they just kept giggling, and they were playful, and they were um, having fun with my confusion. Um, and then in the background there was this tall guy, and he was he. I've said so many different things trying to nail him down, but like a walking stick insect or a sliver, and that's probably like the best thing. He was like a sliver of a person, um, and like if you took a glass of water and spun it, and you'd see that slivery um,
Oh, like a
thing,
vortex almost.
a vortex in the middle, yeah.
Yeah.
And it was this spinning energy, and he came forward, and he looked like he was somebody underwater, because parts of him kind of separated and came forward, and then the rest caught up, like just like a spinning vortex, how it moves and separates. And he had the brightest smile on his face, biggest, brightest smile. His eyes were wide open, and his eyebrows were up. Really fascinating. It looked like he was just overjoyed. And as he came forward, he had, this vortex, he had this spin to him. And as that energy sort of engulfed me as he got closer, um, I felt like I was going to burst. I was going to burst open with love. The feeling was that I was going to break down into uncontrollable crying, tears of joy, of love. And and I held it together. I said, "Dude, hold it together. You don't need to lose it here." And he came forward, and there was like this back and forth stuff. There was mostly chuckling. Um, the Hindus have this character that you see after death. They call him the cheerful king, and that's exactly. And the same Hindu god, he has three clumsy little buffoons that follow him, and um, that's exactly what I saw. Um, and he was so. I mean, he was incredibly cheerful, almost overly cheerful. Everything was chuckling, and um, so I kind of took it all in. I was watching the little
Mm.
guys, and they're bouncing around, playing tricks on each other and stuff, and giggling. And he's looking at them, and he's chuckling, and then he'd look at me, and then he'd really chuckle because I probably looked really surprised. And this went back and forth for a while, and finally I said, "Well, you guys want to do that thing? You flash my life before my eyes, or
Oh, the life review. Okay.
go through it." And um, he chuckled, and then he said, "Sure, sure, let's do that. How do you want to start?" And I thought that was the most unusual answer, but it kind of makes sense that none of this is serious. Um, and I wasn't there for all that. I'm convinced of that. I was there for a show and tell, and then to tell this story. And I thought it was weird that I suddenly had the floor, and so I said, "Well, I don't want to waste this opportunity because I want to get out of this facility and get back into that limitless space.
Yeah.
So I told a few stories and tried to check some boxes, and then
Did
in the
you
middle of
see at
it,
this point, did you see your life kind of flashing before your eyes, or was it sounds like it was more you sharing.
it was me sharing.
Interesting.
And I didn't, and I know that's a very profound thing, but I didn't have that actual review where, maybe you hurt somebody's feelings, you never even knew it,
Mm-hmm.
or you did something wonderful, with a kind gesture, and it had this ripple effect. But I didn't. There was none of that, and um, that kind of fits with what happened next because he said, "Okay, that's enough. Time to go back," and that just shocked me because I had forgotten about back. I'd forgotten about Bill. I didn't want anything to do with any of it, um,
Mm.
and I was like, "What? Go back? I'm not going back there. Are you kidding me?" And he chuckled at that, and I had some excuses. I said I was in my 30s. I said I'm almost 40. It's over. I'm not just an old guy soon. And now I'm in my 70s. So that's really funny to look back at that. But yeah, I told him there wasn't much to do there, and I was like, my mom and my dad and my wife will be upset, but they'll get over it. They're pretty strong people, and he thought that was pretty funny. And I had a couple of other things, and then he was just like stepped forward, and he's kind of like, okay, come on, that's good. You're going back, and kind of the argument was over. Anything further would be wasn't appropriate. It didn't feel. And as he came forward, and that energy engulfed me more, his intention of me going back, his thoughts, the room just started to come apart, and I was on my way back to that earthly dimension, and it was a sinking feeling, a dropping feeling, like the floor dropped out. And I don't really think I was very far away from my body. I think I was in other dimensions through all of this.
Mm.
And I was just passing back through those dimensions and going back to the physical, into my body. And, a lot of your listeners, they're always, everyone is looking for some kind of sign that what people like myself and you say. And that sinking feeling, everybody has felt that coming out of a nap or in the morning. It's like, oh my goodness, I felt like I was falling. And we soul travel when we go to sleep, and sometimes we pick up on that descending feeling where you drop back into your body. And you might even have this euphoric feeling, and then you turn into this heavy feeling of being back in the physical. And
Mm.
that's what I went through, but it was very clear. I mean, I was fully conscious through it. Getting back near my body in this realm, we call it, it's very challenging all around us. And you have to reintegrate that into this spotless, euphoric, joyful soul, and it does not feel good at all.
Yeah.
It's like a dump truck dumping a bunch of problems back on you, and
Mm.
the contrast is just incredible. I wish everybody could absolutely know that. There'd be no problems in the world.
Mm.
We'd know we're just here for these temporary adventures, and that we're all, in love with each other, and it's a euphoric existence. That's really what's out there.
That's
So
so
I
beautiful.
woke up.
Mm.
I, I woke up back in my body, and the nurse came by, and she was really shocked I was awake. She was like startled, and because they didn't know what was going on with me, I was just gone. The blood pressure was, you know, dangerously low all night, like 40 over zero,
Whew.
and then it came, it came back, and I woke up, and she's like, "You're awake," and I was pissed, and I was like, "Yes, yes, I am awake. I need to talk to
You're
you."
like, unfortunately.
And she was like, "Well, I need to go tell the doctor. You've been the project of the night. We didn't know what was going on. We didn't know if you were, if you're going to be like a coma patient, for weeks or." She goes, I need to go tell them." And I said, "Okay, that's fine. You can go tell them." It's still dark out. It's like 5 in the morning or something. And
And how
I said,
much, I'm curious how much time had passed, do you think, that you were in that beyond state? Was it that whole night, or just a few hours or a few minutes?
if it was, if you asked me, I'd say I was there 20 minutes.
Mm,
Um, but you've heard this whole time thing. It's like
yeah.
it's not really something that exists. It's kind of an artifact of this place, um, that these minutes are ticking off and stuff. But so anyway, so I said, "I need to talk to you," and I said, "What am I doing back here?" I wanted an answer to that. I was, like I said, I was pissed off, and I said, "I was home. How did I get back here? Why did I have to come back here?" This was a genuine uh, reaction to being placed here, and it was
Mm,
coming through me, and I think she picked up on that, because I said Bill was dead. I was gone. I had bought the farm, and she came in really close and eye to eye, um, and she said, "Honey," I said, "I bought the farm," and she said, "Honey, you have been in escrow. You've been in escrow all night, but you fell out of escrow, and now you're back with us." And
oh,
escrow
wow.
is that contract thing for when you purchase a property. And
Yeah.
I had said bought the farm, and she had
That's
her hands on my
beautiful.
shoulders, and she kind of, and a lot of NDEs don't get this, but she kind of grounded me, and she looked me
Mm,
right in the eye, and I was a little, you know, uh, frantic, I think, and she looked me right in the eye until I made eye contact, and it was a soul to soul thing that is so powerful, um, that eye contact thing, um, and I said, "Okay," you know, and I got it, and I was grounded, and
wow.
a lot of you can listen to the stories. A lot of people walk through life going the same question: Why did I have to come back here? What did I do that I have to come back here? And this whole shame and guilt and remorse, all these things are, it can end up into addiction and emotional problems. So I got
Yeah.
to bypass that, and I'm grateful for
What
that.
what
And
a yeah, what a gift that she gave you. That's so unique from the stories that I've heard, that she was there with you in that experience in some degree. And
yeah,
I have so many questions for you, but I think I think one of them is those beings that you met. And I think sometimes it seems like different end years meet. Like when I was severely ill, I met a being that was profoundly loving, worked on my energy system in some way, and helped me bridge coming back into my body. I was also aware that there was a timeline, maybe, if you want to call it that, that I left. But I wanted, there was some aspect of me that wanted to stay, something related to my purpose. So I'm curious, did you at the time or later on start to connect with the reason that you came back, that you stayed?
not till much later, 20
Much
years later.
later. Yeah.
Yeah, when I came back, I told everybody, which I guess is another unusual thing. I told everybody in the hospital, I told my family. I could tell that it was upsetting people that, loved me because they
Hmm.
thought I'd been affected, my thinking had been affected because, I was talking about aliens,
Yeah.
basically. Um, and let's see, where was I? That I was,
Well, yeah, and I think going back to the aliens, that's so unique, and I can imagine at the time, because this was quite a while ago, people were not talking about NDEs, and they certainly weren't talking about extraterrestrials, interdimensionals. And I think that's something that makes a lot of sense to me. It also makes sense that people see different avatars of their experience, whether it's past loved ones, it's God, Jesus, Hindu gods, whatever is most relevant for you. But it also makes sense to me that you would meet non-humans if the universe is indeed as broad as we know it to be. And we can talk more about this, but it makes sense to me that you could come across these beings. And it was funny as you were describing these little beings. I was in Egypt in October, and at the Dendera temple, there's these little, right at the entrance along the walkway. There's these little short beings. I can't remember what the name of them is, but for my mind immediately went to what you were describing because it looked very much like them. So it makes a lot of sense to me on why you would come across those beings. But I can imagine this was such a difficult thing to integrate, not only integrate, but to talk about. And it must have been very isolating, I imagine.
yeah. So tell me about the Dendera temple.
Dendera Temple in Egypt, I believe, if I'm remembering right, it's near Luxor, and there's these. They're probably like this tall, so you can't see, but like that tall, couple feet tall, short, kind of like not gremlin looking necessarily, but kind of like cute little beings that kind of stood out from other things that I was seeing in Egypt. Um, so that really stuck in my mind. So as you were talking, that's what came up for me. So I think there's some sort of connection there.
Well, yeah, there's definitely a connection there. And, um, I started doing my ions thing, and I had a picture of that temple and those beings. And
Oh,
I said,
interesting. Wow.
and I tell people, I said, this is not just me.
Yeah.
This was around in ancient times. And, they have a kind of a funny smirk on their face with
Yeah.
these beings. They're kind of smiling and kind of, I don't know, like a playful, that's exactly the expression they had.
Yeah.
Uh, like, oh, this is so fun. You don't even know what's going on, and we got you, and like it's a big game, and
Yeah.
so that's really cool. Yeah,
It's
because
it's I'll send you, see if I can find some photos too. I'll send this to you,
oh
but
yeah, please,
yeah, it
because
was
that was in an old PowerPoint, and it's like, man, I need to find that picture again because I'm we'll talk about this later, but I think it's time for the whole story to come out,
yeah.
and um, and I think you know that too. And so I want
Yeah,
to.
well, let's get into that conversation. Fast forwarding here, um, and starting to share this NDE story of yours, which I think really broke open for people the possibilities of the delta between who it is that we are in the physical body and who it is that we really are as our actual self, which you spoke to so beautifully in your experience. It's like, oh, that's just this illusion. That's not really who I was. This is who I really was. And so it makes so much sense to me that so many NDEers are very reluctant to come back, which you also experience because you're like, well, that's not who I am. Why would I want to go back and be that?
Right,
Um,
right.
But there's clearly a deep value to being in the human experience, and that's why we come here. But yeah, since then, I would love to hear from you about what your experience has been more recently with what is shifting on the planet right now. And I think stories like yours are a big part of helping us start to realize the actual reality that we are interdimensional beings ourselves. We've just forgotten it. And so I'm curious for you in like I was saying, more recent times, what's opening up for you? What are you feeling into? And where do you think we are right now as a species?
I think we're right at the doorstep of this reset that we've been hearing about. I think the last year has been the things you and I talk about, what you're going through and what I'm going through. It's been this sort of preparatory thing. We're all going through it. All of humanity is going through this upgrade, this change in our DNA. It's ridiculous. It's hard, can't believe it. But you and I, we've had something else that said, okay, you're a part of this awakening, and I'm fully aware of that.
Yeah.
And after my NDE, I talked for a while, and I realized it's not going to work. And so I said, okay, it's not going to work, and I just dummied up. And then after I retired, I was a fireman, and there's this thing with sleep with firemen, and all of a sudden my sleep changed dramatically, and I was having all these visions and travels and stuff like that. And then this desire, or this to go further with this questioning what happened, the NDE. And through all of that, I got, for some reason, I clicked on this Rick Strassman's movie, the DMT, the spirit molecule, and it didn't have a lot of, or any entities in that, but something in my head said, oh, he was really cool, and then this suggestion came up on your feed, to buy the book, this Amazon feed thing. And I said, yeah, he was a good guy. He had something, I liked the way he approached the whole project. So I clicked on the book, and then the book arrived. I didn't read it for a while, a couple of weeks, and then I got around to reading it. And when you get to chapter 13 and 14, and it's called Contact Through the Veil, and he was injecting, in a university setting in New Mexico, he was injecting volunteers with DMT at this death transition dose. And they were going,
Interesting. Wow.
it's called DMT, the spirit molecule. And chapter 13, 14, and even 15 are mind blowers, because most of his volunteers were going to a facility. They were seeing 3 playful beings, and they were seeing a taller, happy guy that seemed to be in charge. And
Wow.
the vast majority of them had a pleasant experience. And, and he actually talked about this. He said the personalities of the people who had hellish experiences, where they felt they were being dragged away or accosted by these beings, they were different people on this side. They were, very egotistical and hard to work with in his setting. And so I think that is going to point to what I believe is really going on here, as far as why we come here. We're sort of being processed into these fearless little sweethearts, and then we move out into a unlimited universe with all kinds of non-physical forms of life, and it just goes on and on and on. But we're young souls, and they're just taking sort of the nastiness out of us, and and helping us understand that, it's a mental universe and thoughts are things, and these thoughts manifest instantly, and you got to keep your wits about you when you're in that environment. And I think that's what we learn over thousands of lives.
Yeah, that's so interesting to think about, because if we were living in a realm where it was immediate and there wasn't the delay perceptively of time, I know, and I've mentioned this to people, like, can you imagine that if your thoughts were instantly manifested? Like, we would
Yeah.
take our thoughts much more seriously. And that is, I agree with you, that is what we're being asked to realize about this reality, is that our thoughts are still creating. We're just in a realm where we have this a bit of a delay, or could have a delay. And so
Yeah.
that's actually for our benefit, so that until we learn the true magnitude of our creative capacity. So that makes a lot of sense. And you said something before we talked that I really want to come back to before we talk today, which was that we're being mentored on the planet as a species. And I deeply agree with that. In my own personal experience, I've been experiencing, and I've been a meditator since I was 12, and I think that's helped open the capacity to access these different realms of experience. And maybe because of that, I've started having quite a bit of communication coming in physically, non-physically. And it very much feels to me, especially in the last year even, that there is something happening, and that we are, as a species, are being mentored, and that disclosure's kind of already happened, but it seems to be much more personal maybe than people expected it to be, this kind of grand event. And maybe we'll have that grander event at a cosmic scale at some point, but my feeling has been that it's very much like a grassroots experience. And I'm curious, since you're NDE, have you had these contact experiences with in the physical realm or the non-physical realm?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's so.
Yeah. I could sound like a lunatic and talk forever, but if when I go and sit down on one of the chairs behind me, the couch or whatever, and kind of zone out. I mean, there's a lot of meditation practices and stuff, but anybody can do it. Just zone out, soften your gaze, and kind of let go of what you're trying to focus on visually, and that internal eye, will activate. You just give it time. We've forgotten how to do it. Um, just stay with it, and all kinds of things on the walls behind me and stuff. They're looking back, incredible beings, indescribable, just like a Vegas showgirl. They've got that big splay of feathers, and the costume goes on forever, and it's all beaded, and that's the kind of thing that I see looking back at me, um, and sometimes it's like a bleachers. It's like you're looking at a stadium, and all these faces are looking back, and they're all very entertained by you. It's right out of that movie, The Truman Show.
I was just thinking that. Yeah.
We're being watched by thousands of souls. They're cheering us on, and we're this is a Super Bowl coming up. We're at the gates of the Super Bowl. You use the word disclosure. Yes, Disclosure Day, this blockbuster movie, is going to prepare the masses,
I thought
and
so too. Yeah.
it'll be some months, or it won't be much longer, and things are going to crack open. They're taking, they don't want to stomp on our personalities.
Right.
The change is happening. It's time for the change to happen. It's a reset. It's a remodel, and whenever you do a remodel, there's a demo phase, and the old stuff that makes all of us, cry ourselves to sleep at night. Everything that's going on that is not good and kind and sweet and all that stuff. That stuff's going out. It's going out on our watch. All of us are going to live through it. Some of it's going to go out fighting, but the new energy is the dominant energy. The feminine energy has returned. That nurturing, kind thing that most of us males spend our whole life wondering what is wrong with my wife. Why doesn't she want to go to the football game with me? And she's like, I can't stand it. It's a violent people, and they're all yelling, and now I get it.
Yeah.
And everybody's changing. We're all being softened. So you use the word disclosure, and the Bible uses the word revelation. Revelation, if you look up the definition, it says verbatim, a disclosure of supernatural occurrences. And
Oh, beautiful. Yeah.
so they're all kind of saying the same thing. And, you and I just talked about the mind. Carl Jung, if you look at the things he talks about, the subconscious, everybody's telling the same story in these really broad strokes. And we're all different, we're all going to find our own way to the same story, I think, is what's happening.
Yeah, absolutely. We all have our own, I like to call it energetic constitution that we came into this lifetime with. So we all have to find our own way. And all that any of us can do is just point, like that might be the way, but you have to eventually find out for yourself, right? And
Right.
even in meditation, you come up against this point that I think is maybe similar to the near-death experience, where it requires such a profound surrender. And the ego doesn't want to do that, right? It wants to hang on, it wants hierarchy. And nobody can walk up to that cliff for you, can hold your hand walking up to it. But ultimately, it requires that jump, and we all take it when we're ready. And the near-death experience seems like, to me, to be such a massive opportunity, because people like you get to come back and tell us and be the pointing the way of like, this might be who you actually are. And so for people who feel, I know a lot of people, and we hear this from listeners as well, people are anxious about all the change. As you said, there's a demolition going on. The old just can't come forward anymore. Based on your experience, what would you tell people who feel that anxiety and that stress in the chaos right now?
That they are an eternal, infinite, energetic being, having a temporary experience as this action figure here on Earth. And, the action, it's an action-packed time. And just remember who you are and bring forth that joy and kindness and sweetness and love and helpfulness. That is the only thing on the other side. Bring that forward into this world, because that's what's coming, and that's what we talk about anchors, light anchors, and things like that. That's what they're doing. We're not going to stand up to the protesters or anything. We're going to go collect water and grow a garden, and we're going to be peaceful and helpful and kind. And that's what's going to turn these peaceful warriors. That's what's going to turn everything.
Totally agree. The peaceful warriors, the light warriors, they're being activated now. Absolutely. Is there anything else? Yeah. Go ahead.
Because they talk about the struggle. The human nature is to react. To bear arms and to get together and let's go get, it's that guy over there. He's a problem. Let's go get him. And that's that's what goes on here. This is the animal. This is the beast. And we're wired that way. We're wired to react with fear. We've all had countless lives in all life forms. And, if you go out into the woods and you see a deer, the first thing a deer is like, oh, I got to be afraid of him. I might have to run away. That fear mechanism comes in first. And that's the challenge, is to silence that side of your mind and bring in that right side of your brain, the right side of your mind, that divine side, and again, be helpful, be kind.
The simplest things are the most powerful. Beautiful. Is there anything else that you want to talk about today, Bill, that we haven't yet talked about?
Yeah, those we did talk about those the little guys, and
Yeah.
you I think that's a part of what we all go through. Not all of us remember it, but if you listen to the NDEs, a lot of people talk about these three little hooded guys. They may see faces of light, or they may see, but there's always a lot of three beings on the other side. And, in that movie Communion, that it's very, the name alone tells you, Communion. Some people are going to say it's a movie about abduction, alien abduction, but it's a communion with the divine, the real divine. And you can be afraid of that movie if you want to. Turn the sound off. That helps, because the soundtrack is, it's playing fear notes.
Meant to make you fearful.
Yeah, and it's people have fun with those movies, and but if you watch it, at the end, Christopher Walken, he gets, he's having these experiences, and he gets control of his fear. He's no longer afraid. He puts on his top hat and he heads out the door, and he goes and he finds this light in the middle of a field. He's looking to put an end to this fearful relationship he has with himself, with this real reality that we're all in. And he walks into the field, and some people can say they see a ship, but he doesn't walk into a ship. He walks into a light. He walks into a super bright light, and then he passes into this facility. And these little hooded guys are there, and they're happy to see him, and they're high-fiving him, and they're dancing, and they're laughing. And he has changed it from a fearful experience to a joyful one, and that is what we're faced with. This disclosure is coming, and there's nothing to fear. Fear is here, and we're here to conquer it. And everything else is love.
I felt that. I got a big chill on that. Thank you, Bill. That was beautiful.
Well, thanks for asking. Because I've been wanting to say these words for a long time, but I've just been this, crazy NDE guy. So I'm like, okay, I'm a crazy NDE guy for 10 years.
There's more. There's more that's wanting to come forward now, and that your experience has certainly paved the way. But the next thing I think that people are maybe not quite ready to hear, but it is the truth, is this, like you're saying, is to really alchemize our fear and step into this broader relationship with reality. And I absolutely agree with you. And I think that those beings that you encountered were divine. They were of a higher dimension of consciousness. And ultimately what I've discovered in my own journey is that nothing can hurt you. Like your soul, your essence is infinite. And if that's true, which it is, then that means that fear really is such a, maybe from a certain perspective, kind of crazy illusion that there is even this thing that we experience called fear. But we can learn so much from it because we're in the illusion of separation. But I do think, and I've experienced this in my own journey as well, is this contact experience. And they have been to me in many different types of contact very conscious to not overwhelm the human. I call it a human crystal, because the body, like you've talked about, is so oriented towards survival. And so if you don't have a really good relationship with your body and that survival mechanism, it can override the experience. And that's what so much of this nervous system work, this, however you're doing it, is so important, because it's going to help you ride this wave of change. And I can just tell you from my experience that these beings are so benevolently loving, incredibly powerful because they're interdimensional, and are very cautious and wanting to only approach to the level of how ready we are. And I haven't shared this before, but maybe I'll share this with you, Bill, is that I had an experience in Tahoe actually a couple weeks ago, and they've been showing up in non-physical and physical ways for a long time, but they were pretty low. There was a ship and then multiple ships in the middle of nowhere. And I can feel them energetically and through consciousness as well. It's not just what I see. And the room started to distort. I started not being able to focus on things around me, which freaked me out. And I asked them for help with my fear, which you can always do. And then they disappeared. And I felt bad because I was like, I wasn't I wasn't ready enough, you know? And the next night I went out again, and there's with my friend, so it wasn't just me. And there's 3 ships in the sky. And the distortion comes through the feeling. We talked a little bit about this before we recorded today, this kind of Kundalini central channel activation. You can feel it all through your head, your spine. And they came down to the ground, and we could see them kind of not walking around, but like moving around like light, like tall, wispy light forms. But they were messing with our distortion, so we couldn't quite focus too much, and we felt like that was on purpose. And we thought for a moment, we were like, should we go down there? And then we got the feeling of like, no, this is a good first step. And so that sounds like out of a science fiction novel, and it truly is, some of the things that I've experienced. But I share that because I think that it's time that we start to take those experiences seriously. I mean, it's more real than real. And each one of us can have that experience. You don't have to take anybody's word for it. You can develop the relationship with the larger realms of reality and these beings when you're ready. And so that's it. To your point, things are accelerating and these relationships are emerging. And I'm not surprised that in popular culture and movies that we're seeing this shift with these relationships with these other beings being such a doomsday story. And we're starting to see, okay, no, we need to shift this narrative. There is nothing to be scared of here. And if anything, excited by us getting to step into who it is that we really are by being witnessed by beings who know who we really are. And that's just like, I think it's like you said, the Super Bowl. This is why so many of us are here, is for this. And it's very exciting.
Yeah, it's very exciting. We're all going to live through it, ladies and gentlemen. We're all going to go through it.
Buckle
We're all
up.
going to we're all going to go through it together. And
Yeah.
it's kind of a concentrated experience of what this place is really about. It's your choice.
It's
Is
your
it
choice.
love and look after each other, or is it fear? And that is what it comes down to. It always has been the same story.
Beautiful. And Bill, we have some rapid fire questions we ask all of our guests, if you're ready.
I'm ready.
All right. The first question is, what is one belief that you've held that you no longer hold?
Really? One belief that I've held that I no longer hold. I don't want to get this one wrong, so
There is no getting it wrong.
I'm going to take a second.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. It's been a long time, but it's really to the point now where every other living being on the planet is conscious. They're communicating all the time. If you'll notice through these videos, I used to have just a dog, and now there's several cats, and there's other dogs, and cats are very divine creatures. They were
Agreed.
special in Egypt. If you harassed a cat, you were in a lot of trouble in Egypt, ancient Egypt. Capital crime. Yeah, these are divine beings, and they're hanging around us for the same things you said, that they're helpers. They're physical world helpers. They're vibration frequency holders. They're purr. All of this. It's very divine stuff. And yeah, I was raised. Cats would drink the milk out of a baby's mouth and suffocate it. That's what I grew up with. And cats are cool, man.
Cats are
It's
cool. I
completely.
agree.
My wife calls me. She goes, "Now you're some crazy cat person," because I send her pictures. But yeah, cats are cool. There's something
Cats are cool.
really special.
My cat was with me when I had a light being materialized in my living room, and it was such an intense energy. I could barely stay in my body. And I would have thought that I was having a mental break, except that my cat was also interacting with this being. He was locked in on it, and he was winking. You know how cats do when they're comfortable or loving? And I'm sitting there kind of freaking out, and he's just like very focused but comfortable. And it was after that I was like, oh, he's a lot more divine than maybe I always thought he was divine, but I was like, he's quite the powerful being, and that helped my experience so much.
Yeah, they're powerful beings, and there was that was the helper role right there.
Right, exactly. It was perfectly timed, and it would have been a completely different experience if he hadn't have been there. So the next
Right.
question is, what is consciousness to you?
Consciousness is everything. We humans, we've defined the world, made of molecules, made of atoms, and underneath the atoms is this multitude of conscious beings. We're all part of it. We're just pretending temporarily. But consciousness is the universe, and through our thoughts, we harness the power and we create. And consciousness is all there is. And it's these wonderful drops of intelligence that are swimming in a sea of pure ecstasy, and that is our home.
I can feel that. Can feel that. It's beautiful. And this what's probably related, but what is source, God, or oneness to you?
Source, God, oneness is that energy of love. It's a real energy. It has a frequency. It has a vibration. If you've heard the word the Son of God, and in ancient times, people knew of this light, divine light that we come from. And when you were in the old times, when a man had a son, he had a little version of himself that stood next to him, a little mini-me. And what the ancients said was the sun is a little mini-me of our divine dimension that we come from. And if you think about it, it passes by every day, and
Yeah.
the plants grow, and without it, nothing continues. It's radiating warmth and love
Right.
and
Yeah.
light, and that's everything.
That's interesting. It makes me think about, again, we're for some reason today going back to Egypt quite a bit, but Ra being the sun god. And I've only had contact with that intelligence once, and it was in the king's chamber in Egypt, and it felt like to me that that Ra it was like one level down, if you want to call it, from source. Just one little bit of a separation. And that would make sense, right? The sun, the one step down from source. Beautiful.
Yeah, the sun is a doorway to our home. It's a portal. Um, NASA tells us a different story, but um, it was about 6 years ago. I sleep outside, and I was, the sun was, it was early morning. The sun had not come up, and this voice came in from the left, from behind on the left. This is very common. People hear this, and it said, "Get up and go down out there by the lake with your bare feet and face the sun and watch it rise and gaze at the sun." And I have learned with that voice, I have learned, okay, no problem. I'm on it, and I like peel off the covers, and my wife's like, "Where are you going?" I'm like, "I got something I'm supposed to do." And so I went down and watched the sun come up, and people are looking for experiences. You talk about the sun god. People are looking for experiences. You can do it tomorrow morning. They can wake up, you can put your bare feet on the ground and look directly at the sun. Um,
Well, does that damage your eyes? Don't want anybody damaging their eyes.
well, and you got to make that disclaimer because the that is the story. That is a very profound story. We've heard it since we were 2 years old. Do not look at the sun. And you shouldn't. But in that first morning, that first half hour or so, you can gaze directly at the sun and you'll see the heartbeat of love. You'll see these wild fluctuations. You'll see the outer edge is a maroon spinning disc. It's going different directions. You'll see a tunnel. People die, they say they go into a tunnel. Well, yeah, they're going back into the light. They're going back into that dimension of
Wow.
love. And a lot of Egyptian stuff. There's that thing with they have the beard that comes down, and that's like when you fly across water and you're going back to the sun. The sun's rays are a trail home to something. I'm getting it all wrong, but
No,
um,
I feel you. Beautiful.
Louisa Peck in her NDE, she's one of my favorites. I saw her at a conference years ago and walked right up to her and I said, "Sit down. We need to be associated." And anyway, her story was that she flew out of a bar. She had a near-death experience, and she flew out of her body in this bar scene and flew into the sky, and it was a euphoric blue sky, and she flew straight to the sun, and she went through this filament, and she was in the sun, and she was home, and there was all these beings there, and she had to go back, but she's one of the only people who said flew right through the sun and was home, and I said, "Yeah, you're pretty authentic." So anyway,
It makes some
that's
sense.
something you can do. I mean, you can
Yeah.
maybe you don't want to do it because there's this whole story about your eyes. But if you do look at the sun, it, there's there's like a light code or something, and it fires off our DNA. It's something we're lacking. That's why we're so anxious and unhappy. But once you reconnect with that and upgrade your DNA, um, everything changes. Yeah, completely happy all the time. My wife says, "You're too happy." I said, "Well, yeah, yeah, something happens with reconnecting with source."
Yes. I'm gonna do that. There's also something about meditating before the sun comes up and
Yeah,
timing that with opening your eyes to that first sunlight. I'm starting
Yeah.
to connect the dots here. There's something very powerful about that. So
You,
I'm gonna do that
you sound
myself.
like you sound to me like you are aware of who Robert Grant is.
I am. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
I've been
he's the
in a
man.
few rooms with him.
He is the man. And you just mentioned this. He has this diamond meditation
Mm.
thing. You can find it online, and it's just that facing the east as the sun rises, and a couple of chants and things. Um, Absolutely incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
Um, he's
Yeah.
gonna
Highly
he is
recommend.
he's yeah he's gonna everything points to Egypt because that was
Mm.
the last um, holdout of ancient times
Yeah.
when life was incredibly blissful. And so yeah, everything, and he's like the Egypt guy, and
Mm.
he's gonna lead us back, those of us that can hear him, or he's gonna lead us back to what we really are.
Mm. So many. Yeah. Beautiful. Very excited about who's stepping forward in these times because it's needed. Um, we all need that. Even somebody who's a few steps ahead of you or to your side or behind you, like this is a community experience, like you were talking about, of being there in kindness and courage with each other is going to go such a long way. So the last question is, it's 100 years in the future on Earth. What do you hope for humanity?
That they're well on their way to everything you and I've talked about today,
Mm.
and I think they will be. I think anybody listening to this can go there now,
Mm.
but I think the entire world, 99% will be in this completely different space from where we are now. There is no lack. There is no instability. There is nothing but security and happiness, and that's where we'll be.
Love it. Well, Bill, this has been truly an honor. I really acknowledge the powerful dimensions of your being. I appreciate you journeying with us today, sharing your wisdom, your experience. I think that this will help a lot of people who are looking for some clarity, some guidance. So thank you so much, truly.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for what you're doing, because you're the first one through the wall, from what I can tell.
I
And
like
they
that
always
saying.
they always get beat up the worst, but I appreciate what you're doing because I've never had a conversation like this before.
Mm,
Thank
mm.
you.
Thank you. Thank you, Bill. And thank you to the light beings listening. Till next time. Thank you for journeying with us today, Light Being. We hope you enjoyed the episode. And before you go, we want to invite you to explore the SoulPod app, where you can immerse yourself in daily lessons, guided meditations, and breath work to develop a soul nourishing daily ritual and tune back into your own inner guidance system. You can download SoulPod in the App Store or directly from the show notes to start your free trial today and awaken the ancient wisdom within you.